All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you.
The Oakland police camera system is nothing like what the DAC program is about. DAC was initiated in 2009 to protect the Port of Oakland from terrorist attacks. The DAC was started with American Recovery Reinvestment Act Port and Security Grant Program funding. The Port of Oakland, not the City of Oakland, accepted the grant funding in 2010. However, the City of Oakland selected SAIC to implement the DAC project. How that decision was made, I'd be interested in knowing.
And I would just like to point out that this is on the front page of Reddit right now. It's an international attention being paid, and the crowd to speak on this has been starved out by placing it towards the end of the day when you knew how important it was.
I'm a law student at Harvard, and I live here for the rest of the time. This is kind of really interesting to me. What you have going here is going to, if it goes forward, will make for really great discussions in class. This is fascinating stuff. This is on the cutting edge of Fourth Amendment jurisprudence. I don't think you want to be on the cutting edge of Fourth Amendment jurisprudence.
You say if you don't get phase 3 funding, for example.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. We'll cross our fingers that we'll get that.
Yes, we will.
And it reads, these cameras read license plates, or they can read license plates, no?
Yes.
Okay. It's very exciting. I assume none of these cameras go into people's living rooms or anything like that.
No.
Okay. All right, sounds good to me.
No.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. As amended. Item now. We are moving to item 36 with the clerk.
Until eventually you realize that these things need to be determined by the public, not by somebody who is simply hired by the government.
I'm a satellite system specialist, so with the things that I was doing with satellites, I found out sort of inadvertently that American citizens were being spied upon.
I think that the public is owed an explanation of the motivations behind the people who make these disclosures that are outside of the democratic model. When you are subverting the power of government, that's a fundamentally dangerous thing to democracy. And if you do that in secret consistently, you know, as the government does when it wants to benefit from a secret action that it took, it'll kind of give its officials a mandate to go, hey, you know, tell the press about this thing and that thing, so the public is on our side.
Tonight I'm speaking with NSA whistleblowers Kirk Wiebe and Thomas Drake, two men who were involved in exposing the NSA's illegal surveillance program known as the Trailblazer Project. Thomas, you were pointing out that there were illegal dimensions to this program that were unnecessary.
To my horror, I discovered that NSA had abandoned a 23-year legal regime called the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. Yeah, an act that was passed in 1978. largely because of the massive abuse, even during the 60s and 70s, against Americans.
The public needs to decide whether these programs and policies are right or wrong. And I'm willing to go on the record to defend the authenticity of them and say, I didn't change these. I didn't modify the story. This is the truth. This is what's happening. You should decide whether we need to be doing this.
It's happening. I mean, the justification for this from the administration is, you know, this is counterterrorism efforts. Is that a legitimate explanation?
No. Well, part of it is now, since I've been in the intelligence community, I know they bamboozle Congress.
They went after the Supreme Court, of which I held Judge Alito's paperwork in my hand, numbers associated with Judge Alito that someone had put into the system that NSA used to spy on Judge Alito. Wannabe Senator Barack Obama, at that time, he wasn't even a senator. He had won his primary in Illinois. And I think maybe the catalyst, and I'm not sure, was the fact that he had just done a big speech at the Democratic convention. Is there some kind of leverage that's being placed on our three branches of government to make sure that the intelligence community gets what they want? In other words, is the intelligence community running this country, not our government? But now we have the proof that what I've said in the past is true. And they want Snowden bad because he's now codified the truth of what is going on with the National Security Agency.
At the same time, you have to make a determination about what it is that's important to you. And if living unfreely but comfortably is something you're willing to accept, and I think many of us are, it's the human nature. You can get up every day, you can go to work, you can collect your large paycheck for relatively little work against the public interest and go to sleep at night after watching your show.
And I was just shocked because NSA was not supposed to do this. It was against regulation, it was against the law, it was against our Constitution.
What happened with regard to the Fourth Amendment? Was there a general sense within the NSA that we have to operate within the boundaries of the Constitution, or did 9/11 say, did it cause people to say, you know, the ends justify the means, we need to be safe?
Yes, that essentially happened, and it was totally unnecessary. It was well within technology's capability at the time to encrypt or safeguard the identities of American citizens then as it is right now. And yet, we have no Fourth Amendment protections built into any of the recent legislation granting the U.S. government unbridled capability to grab people's data.
Any more questions?
So what was Stellar Wind?
Turning the United States of America, without any controls, without any kind of auditing, into the equivalent of a foreign nation for the purposes of blanket dragnet electronic surveillance against U.S. persons. Which, in total violation of the Fourth Amendment and in complete violation of the standing statute, which was supposed to be the exclusive means by which you would conduct such electronic surveillance.
Excuse me, NSA is literally tapping every communication, every digital communication in this country. Content, not just the metadata, the content. And when they're saying, well, it's not that far, once again, they are lying. They continue to lie about the full capability.
They're saying things like, if we can't do all this spying, we won't be able to find the bad guys, and, you know, the country will be vulnerable, which is absolutely false. Okay, we could have protected all the identities of all U.S. citizens, or anyone in the world for that matter, and still gotten the bad guys.
Somehow we have to trade off our liberty for the sake of security.
Right.
When in fact, you can actually have both.
Ben Franklin quote.
Yes.
So is it possible to unring that bell?
Well, you know, Frank Church himself warned the country as a result of what he found out about the massive abuse during the 60s and 70s, that if the technology advanced to a stage where essentially you could surveil everybody or have the capacity to surveil everybody, would you be able to pull it back? Right. And so the open question really is, why should we trust NSA in the 21st century any more than we ended up finding out how much you have to distrust NSA during the 60s and 70s?
Is that most Americans aren't really complaining about this. I mean, there are a lot of us. I mean, there are people like you. The people who are complaining about it are talking very loudly about it. But the vast majority of Americans, first off, have no idea that's going on. And second off, kind of resigned to thinking, well, I'm not doing anything wrong. I don't have anything to hide.
Why should people care about surveillance?
Because even if you're not doing anything wrong, you're being watched and recorded. And the storage capability of these systems increases every year consistently by orders of magnitude, to where it's getting to the point you don't have to have done anything wrong. You simply have to eventually fall under suspicion from somebody, even by a wrong call. And then they can use the system to go back in time and scrutinize every decision you've ever made, every friend you've ever discussed something with, and attack you on that basis to sort of derive suspicion from an innocent life and paint anyone in the context of a wrongdoer.
The DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, routinely gets top secret tips from the NSA and other intelligence agencies without a warrant from a judge. Then it cooks up a new backstory to cover up its source.
This is the shredding of the Fourth Amendment, Judge. What the DEA is saying, we've gotten tips from the NSA, right, the National Security Agency, based on really illegal taps and surveillance, and we said, well, we're giving it to them. They use that, but don't say where they got the information from, and allegedly go get Americans or bad guys. And there's something called the Special Operations Division. This is a collection of 24 federal agencies, including the IRS, the NSA, the Department of Homeland Security. They provide information to local, county, and state law enforcement, but they say, you can't say where you got it from. You tell me, Judge Napolitano, is that legal or constitutional to lie about the source of information, to say it's one thing when it's something else?
Most judges would throw out the prosecution, and then the bad guy goes free because the government has lied.
They're calling it parallel construction, as if it's a real legal concept. There is no such thing.
Anybody in the positions of access with the technical capabilities that I had could, you know, suck out secrets, pass them on the open market to Russia. You know, they always have an open door, as we do. I had access to, you know, the full rosters of everyone working at the NSA, the entire intelligence community, and undercover assets all around the world, the locations of every station we have, what their missions are, and so forth. If I had just wanted to harm the U.S., you know, that you could shut down the surveillance system in an afternoon.
Calb, I understand you believe in legislative safeguards, but that is laughably naive. Ask a tech. Ask Sergeant Bolton, who established the Nixel database, which is a spy database that currently exists. Did you put that into existence? Was that legislated into existence? It's just a click of a button.
The greatest fear that I have regarding the outcome for America of these disclosures is that nothing will change. People will see in the media all of these disclosures. They'll know the lengths that the government is going to grant themselves powers unilaterally to create greater control over American society and global society. But they won't be willing to take the risks necessarily to stand up and fight to change things, to force their representatives to actually take a stand in their interests.
We're headed towards a police state. How many times have Tom and I and Bill talking about this? It sounds like Gestapo. It sounds like Stasi of the East German operation. We are moving in that direction. People are trashing the Constitution. They've lost their respect for it.
The greatest fear that I have regarding the outcome for America of these disclosures is that nothing will change. They won't be willing to take the risks necessarily to stand up and fight to change things, to force their representatives to actually take a stand in their interests.
All right, sounds good to me.
Be willing to take the risks necessarily to stand up and fight to change things, to force their representatives to actually take a stand in their interests.